Okay? But in order for us to fully appreciate the words of Hannah in 1 Samuel 2, we must first understand her backstory. That's why we read chapter 1. And what I want us to do now, I asked Jonathan for some runners, is that I want to piggyback on what Josiah did last week. Josiah, I thought last week was excellent. How many persons were in church last week? And I want us to have a very brief time of interaction as a congregation and me, okay, about 1 Samuel chapter 1. We're going to do a very quick Bible study, and then at the end, I'll give my sermon, which will be even briefer than the Bible study. So don't be worried about time. We'll have enough time to do our breaking of bread and go home to dinner and things before night come. Maybe just before night come, but we'll get there. All right. So can we look at 1 Samuel chapter 1 on the board, please? And then I'm asking for some runners because I'm asking some questions, but I want you to answer for me. You're pointing down there. What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't understand what the finger means. Oh, we have some young people runners. Okay, runners, please get up, please. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so you need to be looking out for the hands. And as you look out for the hands, you go quickly. You need to stand up, though. Great. Thank you. So look out for the hands. Just stand in the middle right there. Go up a little bit more. Stand in the middle. Look out for the hands. I'm going to suggest that one of you come over on this side. One of you come this side. This feels like Wimbledon, where you have the ball boys ready to get the balls. So you're looking, and when people put up their hand, you go to them. So we are there. Good. So I want us to look at that first thing. Maybe we should read it together, right? There was a certain man, let's read it with me. There was a certain man from, I'm a smart man. I allowed you to pronounce that, leave it out. Let's go again. There was a certain man from the hill country of, whose name was son of, and I continue. He had one called Hannah and the other Penina or Penina. My girl, you didn't pronounce the name wrong here. We don't know how it's pronounced. Penina, what people usually say, but it can be Penina. Penina had children, but Hannah had. Years after, this man went up from his town to worship and sacrifice the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Next verse. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife, Penina, and to all her sons and daughters. Next. But to Hannah he gave because, and the Lord had. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Based on all that we just read, how would you describe Elkanah? Yes? He was a loving husband. I heard that. He jumped the gun. He didn't speak with the mic at his mouth. But his brother is going to redeem him. Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Derek.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm puzzled why Hannah couldn't adopt.
Okay. We'll soon come to that. All right. Anybody else? What kind of man was Elkanah? Yes.
Putting a spin on it, he was a loving husband of Hannah.
He was a loving husband of Hannah. Could you explain that? I wonder why I made that thing.
Well, he was very partial, and he had a favorite, and the lady had a lot of sons, but none of them, everything could not compare to Hannah. So Hannah would look back and say he was really a loving husband of.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Anything else? What else you notice about Elkanah? Yes. Excuse me, ma'am.
He was a man who had plenty children.
He had plenty of children. So hand on back there. I think there's something obvious that I'm not hearing yet. I'll come to you.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Based on my information that I've been getting here since I've been sitting here for the last few minutes, he was a loving husband.
He was a loving husband. All right, thank you. Most definitely. I see a hand at the back there. Auntie Kay.
He was also someone who worshipped the Lord.
Okay.
Because he'll go year after year. Michael?
No, I'm telling you, continue. That sounds where I want us to go. Right.
Yes. Well, yes, he went year after year and he sacrificed to the Lord.
Uh-huh.
And he also took care of all his children and his wives.
Right.
So though he was partial, it would seem he was partial to Hannah.
Yeah.
He also took care of what's her name?
Penina. And
Penina and all her children.
yes.
So he took care of his family.
You said he worshiped the Lord. Is there any other way we could say that? Anybody else? She said he worshiped the Lord. Is there any other way we could capture that word, capture that idea? He honored the Lord. Yes, Daniel? He was a devout man. That's a nice fancy word. Anybody can tell me what devout means? Yes?
Devoured some food.
No. He devoured some food. No. You see why I asked the question? Because it's not a word that we oftentimes use. What does devout mean? He was faithful. He was dedicated to the Lord. He was a man of faith. We could use all those words to describe Elkanah. Now, I want us to move to verses 7 and 8. Verse 7 and 8. Go to verse 6 for me. Okay. That's it? Now, verse 6 tells us, this is about Hannah. And because the Lord had closed her womb, her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. Verse 7, the next verse is, it's coming up. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her until she wept and would not eat. Next verse. Elkanah, her husband, would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? What do verses 7 and 8 tell us about Hannah? I see a hand there, right?
She desperately wanted to give her husband a child.
Okay.
Or she desperately wanted to have a child.
A child. Anybody more specific than that? She wanted to give him a son. Can anyone explain that for us? Why does she want to give her husband a son? Anybody knows? Michael, at the door? Can you explain? Why does she want to give him a son, not just a child?
Maybe she wants to carry her name.
Okay, no, you say that as though it's kind of offhanded, but that is actually the answer. In Israel, she wants to carry on his name because a woman's worth is seen in her ability to carry on her husband's name. So without that, she is what? She's barren. That's what we know about her. But in her mind, if she can't give her husband a son, she is worthless. And so she is devastated by the fact that she cannot have a son, can't bear a child for her husband. Okay? Now, we want to go quickly. Now, let us look at verses 9 to 18, Peasy. In case those of you who do not know, PZ is Jonathan, and I like calling people by their right names, except that you'll hear maybe you hear a little bit later, that one of the young men from Standpipe told me why I must call him by his nickname. He isn't here this morning, and I came to appreciate that. Okay, so PZ is not derogatory in calling him that. Okay, so Jonathan, I want you to put up for me verses 9 to 18, and we read together again, and then we'll quickly do the questions. 9 to 18. Read, please. Okay. Now, we already heard some things about Hannah. What else does this portion tell us about her? Quite a few things, I think. But what else, apart from the earlier things that we heard about her, are we discerning from this portion? Yes, Sister Cook.
As the young people would say, she didn't load up the place. She
What?
really spoke to the Lord with her heart. No one else heard, but she was speaking to the Lord.
Okay, thank you. So she went to the Lord with her concern. Run, come down here, my girl. Come quick. Hand right here. Hand right here. Thank you.
She knew or thought that the Lord could solve her problem.
She knew or she thought the Lord could solve her problem, right? It's a handy, right?
But I happen to be aware that many women who struggle to produce a child, they don't necessarily pour their distress to God. It's their husband or their boyfriends who they take it out on. And blame starts as to the biology of the husband and all those things.
Right. Yeah. I happened, yes, Dr. Bain.
It was said that she wanted to have a child for her husband to maintain his line, but in this prayer, she wanted to give the son to God.
Right. So what does that say about her?
That her concern was about God more than about having a child for her husband.
Okay, thank you about that. Anybody else? Anything else that stands out in your mind? Yes.
Yeah, I was impressed about the description in bitterness of soul.
Uh-huh.
That made an impression on me,
Yeah.
and several other things about her that suggest that she was really, really more than sad.
Almost inconsolable, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And sometimes that's what life does to us. We come to a place where we are so weighed down by a burden, whatever the burden is, that we don't think that there's any hope outside of God. And sometimes that's where God wants us to be. Okay? Sometimes that's where he wants us to be. I can't pretend that I fully understand why he does that to some of us and not to others, but sometimes that's where we are. So we're learning these things about Hannah as we go on. We'll soon come down to the sermon. Now, 19 to 21. Look at that for me, please. 19, and I'm going to challenge, not challenge, that what our brother Derek said, kind of have a question left in my head. So 19 to 21, read for me, please. They arose and worshipped before the Lord, and then went back to their home at Ramah. Elkanah lay with Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So, no, 21, back, yes. Okay, let's talk. 20 was really the place to stop. Thank you about that. So, verses 19 and 20 tell us that the Lord answered Hannah's prayer. What is that telling us about prayer? I want us to be very clear on this. Pastor, didn't you give us the answer already? You go ahead. Say a hand there. Go ahead.
You have to be a true believer to believe in a prayer.
Okay, good. You have to be a true believer. All right? I don't want you to clap too quick enough. Because I want to know if this is a promise from God that every time we pray as true believers, he's going to answer us in the way he wants. We want to answer him. We want him to answer us. Is that so? And so this, yes, Barbie.
What I learned from it is that God can answer prayer.
And God does answer prayers.
And sometimes he answers the prayer that we ask for.
Yes. But you see, when Derek said that sometimes women who can't conceive take it out on their husbands or their boyfriends, okay? I got the impression, and I'm not saying this is what he's saying, but my twisted mind got the impression is that if they poured it out on God, God would answer them positively. That's how I felt about it, right? What he said. In this passage, God answered Hannah's prayer the way she wanted him to. Okay? And we give God thanks for that. I see a hand there. Yes, Michael?
Thank you. She prayed with a broken and contrite heart.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and the faith that she prayed with, she was really asking in all faith and honesty and sincerity the Lord to answer her prayer. And with that, it's the condition of the heart that you have to have, or mind, when you go to the Lord.
Okay. Yeah, but again, Michael, which is true, all of that is true. But I have known people who have sincerely prayed to God from a life of faith, and they have not received the answer that they desire. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah.
Maybe it is
Yes.
that God is still going to answer, you know. But up until this time, it has not yet happened. And guess what? Some people die and they never see. We did a series on Hebrews 11, remember, some time ago? Where we said that there are some people who maintained faith and never received the promise. in their lifetime. I see two hands going up at the back. Please. Oh.
So I think one of the things we need to realize is that sometimes God always answers prayer, but his answer sometimes is yes. Sometimes it's no. We don't always accept the no.
Right.
And it's also wait.
Yes.
Because in his own time. But it's not always a yes to our prayer.
Yeah. And sometimes the answer is no. And then we say, after, now I understand, and it is better. Okay? But I want to say, I have a friend who died 2 nights ago, live right here on Palmetto Avenue, about 4 houses up on the right going up. She taught a camp and she died after a brief illness, died on a Friday night. And I'm positive that her family was praying that she would survive. Okay? Daniel? Okay, go ahead. Who was first? Mara? No? Oh, okay, go ahead.
You asked the question earlier if we've ever experienced that, praying for something and not receiving it right away, or, my mother-in-law, Carmen, she prayed for years to be healed from lupus, and she was. When my son was born and she came to live with us, she received her healing 2 years before. She didn't know, and she went to the doctor, they checked her and everything, and said that the lupus was in remission. But when she passed, just before she passed, they had tested her for lupus, and the doctor said there was no trace of lupus in her body. And so we believe that she was healed.
Yeah. But she still died.
She did, and her time had come.
Yeah. And guess what? Most of us will die, no matter how hard we pray. That's how it is. I said most of us because I don't know if the Lord will return before. And there are many, many people who here, they're hoping for the rapture because they're afraid of death. I say that last time, and then we have to rush on quickly because I've already gone too long. Yes?
Yes, Pastor. Many is afraid of death, but death to me is how you die.
Okay. So I suspect you're saying that some people die bad and some people die good? Is that what you're saying? What is a bad death? Same person. Same person. What's a bad death?
A bullet to the head.
Okay. And there are some Christians who die from a bullet to the head. But it's sad. It's just what the reality is. Now, I could go on. Let me ask one last question, because there are some other questions I'm skipping over. Why do we, and this is where I'm asking for the literature minds here. I wish Carlton was here today. I was hoping he would have been here. Is he hiding somewhere? He's not here. So other literature minds. Why do you think the writer of 1 Samuel why does he start the book with this account? Think about it a little bit. I don't think there's any obvious answer, but why would he start the book with this account? The very first story is a story of barrenness and difficulty and oppression. And why does he start the book like this? Anybody? Not certain. It's Auntie K.
Telling the story about Samuel.
Okay.
This is how Samuel was born.
Okay.
A real live, hard story,
All right.
It's life,
It's life. This is life. Great. I hope we start to see a little bit more as we move on. Now, that's the first part. I'm going to go to a sermon, but I promise my sermon is going to be brief. We want to read 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 1 to 10. Who's my reader, G there? 1 Samuel 2, 1 to 10.